In this video, we'll be looking at data types. Before watching this video, it's important that you understand about how to input data using Python. So, what actually is a data type? Well, a data type is an attribute of data which tells the computer how the programmer intends to use that data. There are a wide range of data types that you need to know, and they are called string, integer, floating point number, Boolean, and date or time. Don't worry if some of these don't make any sense. We're going to look at them in more detail now. A string is just a word we use for text. In Python, strings are represented by placing the data in speech marks. Here's an example of a string. When you want to convert an item of data into a string, we use the command str. Here's an example of what it would look like. Now, this isn't a command that is used often because normally we only change data types after a user has input some data, and we never need to tell the computer that the data the user entered was a string because the computer would always assume that the data is string whenever it is entered by the user. An integer is a whole number, so a number with no decimal point. The command to convert data into an integer is int, and here's an example of how this is done. It's very common to do this when asking the user to enter a number for the reason just mentioned previously. The computer assumes all user inputs are string. So if you're trying to get a number after you've asked the user to enter the number, you have to use int to convert it to an integer. A floating point number is a number with a decimal point. To convert data into a floating point number, we simply use the word float. And here's an example right here. When choosing between an integer and a floating point number, you want to think about whether or not the number that will be entered is going to at some point get a decimal point applied to it. For example, money and temperatures are often recorded with decimals, so should be floats, whereas age is only ever a whole number. So this should be an integer. Boolean data is true or false. These are written with no speech marks, and if you want to convert an item of data to Boolean, you simply use the command word bool. Here's an example. Finally, date or time. Here's an example of what this data type looks like in Python. For the GCSE course, you don't need to know too much about working with date or time, so we won't look at converting in this video. And that's everything you need to know about data types.